Now, you mentioned Patrick Bateman from one of my
Yes.
favorite movies, American Psycho, and you got
Yes.
me thinking about psychopaths versus narcissists.
Yes.
I believe the psychopath is much more Machiavellian, usually, and the
Correct.
narcissist they're more sensitive to criticism,
Yes.
and they're more emotional. But they're more emotional makes it so that you can spot them. The psychopath, on the other hand, they're cool, calm, collect. I kind of think politicians are like that, where in public, they'll act like they're doing the right things, but then behind closed doors, they'll act fairly egregiously.
What's the question?
So the question is, well, you're right. I didn't get to the question.
Are you asking me, do I agree with that assessment?
That's one part of the question, yes. But then
Okay.
the other part would be, American Psycho, is that a
Yep.
good portrayal of a psychopath?
Well, what's interesting is that you could actually have two personality types at work with Patrick Bateman, all dependent upon answering this question: was it real? You see, there is a suggestion that he didn't kill anybody, that he doesn't engage in the amount of sex with women that he believes that he does, and that therefore would cater more to him being a narcissist. You see, for example, at one point he goes into the bar and he offers some beer tokens, and the woman says, "These aren't valid here." So he asks for his drinks, and when she turns her back to him, he says something along the lines of, "I'd like to stab you and play with your blood." And she doesn't react. Now, does she not react because she can't hear him because the music is so loud? Or does she not react because he never said it and it's imagined in his head, and he'd love to be able to do that to her, but couldn't? And for instance, when he's being pursued by the police, he fires his gun and blows up the police car. And then he looks at his gun as if to say, how the hell did that happen? Again, is that the case that it didn't actually happen? So there are lots of instances throughout the film where you might actually form the view that this is an ultra vain individual who looks after his appearance, is obsessed with material things, goes through that detailed sort of skincare and beauty regime, is wealthy, but is nowhere near as important as he actually thinks he is. And he's preoccupied with getting reservations and so forth. And he knows all the intricacies of music and a sound system and so forth, because that caters to his means of asserting control over people. But when it comes to killing the beggar or nail gunning a prostitute in his apartment, it might be said none of that happens, and it's all within the realm of a fantasy for him, and it's part of his narcissistic delusion. There's also the point as well that later on in the film, of course, he appears to start to have some kind of breakdown when he's outside and he rings up Jean from one of the telephone kiosks, and he starts mumbling incoherently. Again, you wouldn't necessarily see a psychopath engage that way, because as you've identified, they're much cooler and calm about things. So it might well be that he is just a narcissist that would love to be a serial killer, but isn't. So that could be one interpretation. The alternative interpretation is that he is indeed a psychopath that has narcissistic traits, because invariably psychopaths do, that he can't form any connections to anybody, that he has that emptiness that the narcissist does. But furthermore, he doesn't experience any fear. He gets bored very easily, and he sees people as playthings, and that he embraces the emptiness within himself by engaging in the mutilation of prostitutes, the knifing of the beggar in the alleyway, and the cruelty to his animal by stamping on it to kill it. And therefore, those aspects of the psychopathy would be appropriate. Where it perhaps doesn't fit entirely is the point that I mentioned a few moments ago, when he starts to have a bit of a meltdown and he shows that he's having a panicked reaction to situations. That wouldn't necessarily fit with the image of a psychopath. Remember, of course, I often explain this to people, that film and book and television portrayals often get it partially right, but not entirely right, because they're primarily focused upon entertainment. And therefore, in the same way that when you watch a legal drama, and it's set in the United Kingdom and the judge starts banging a gavel, that's immediately incorrect, because judges in the United Kingdom don't use gavels. But it's included for dramatic effect. And invariably, if you were to ask any lawyer, is this an accurate representation of a courtroom? They'll go, no, it's much more boring than that. And you never have that sudden star witness coming forward, because you have to tell in advance who your witnesses are. And you don't suddenly produce with a flourish the document that proves that he did it, because you have discovery or disclosure ahead of time. So in the way that a legal drama is written to entertain and isn't wholly representative of the way that the law functions and operates, and believe me, I've been in enough courtrooms to know how deadly boring it is. It's the same with these portrayals of narcissists and psychopaths, that some are very accurate, others are reasonably accurate. And with American Psycho, if you were to say, well, I believe that those things actually did happen, then there is a fairly good portrayal of a psychopath, but it's not 100% accurate.
Now, what movies would you say had a great portrayal of a psychopath, and what's maybe one that utterly failed?
No, I think it's No Country for Old Men that has Chigurh. He's a very good portrayal, because he is that walking emptiness, and he embraces that. He is utterly remorse-free, and that people's lives are there to be played with on the flip of a coin. That he doesn't react in a particularly emotional way whatsoever. He's hyper-focused, and his dogged determination in the pursuit of the people that have, I think it is with regard to the removal of the money. So I think that's probably one of the best portrayals that has existed.